call this meeting of the Community Justice Collaborating Council to order. To everyone who's participating by Zoom, again, welcome. To those here in person, welcome. There may be some others joining us through either of those means as we get rolling here, but I did check and I believe we have a quorum, but I'll ask Mike O'Keefe to call the roll formally, please.
Thank you, Judge. Dave Peterson.
Here.
Dave Osnes. Sheriff Knutson.
Present.
Judge Needham.
Here.
Scott Cox.
Here.
Christy Severson. Christy? I know she's there. Christy Severson? Okay. Kate Avalos? Mark Lemke? Here. Kurt Thomason?
Here.
Allison Page?
Here.
Randy Morissette?
Here.
Chief Mark Richard?
Present.
Ken Witt? Present. Carl Anderson? Bob Fiedler? Agnes Ring? Sue Garrity?
Here.
Bob Barrett?
Here.
And Lori Osberg?
Here with a brief departure at 8:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Christy's on, but no audio. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I know that Christy Severson apparently is battling with the technology, so we're going to mark her as present and hopefully she can get herself online. The minutes from the November 12 meeting were included as part of your packet. First, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Chairman Peterson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lemke. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Carried unanimously. Now's the opportunity for public comment. I know we have a couple members of the public here in person. I believe we have other folks who technically are part of the public, although may be employed by the county, online as well. Mr. Fiedler has now joined us as well. Mike. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Well, I was hoping that our Assistant Corporation Counsel, Elizabeth Roll, was going to join us. At least we had... Oh, Ms. Roll, are you there? Oh, there she is. Well, I should correct myself and say Judge Appoint Elizabeth Roll has joined us. Congratulations to her first in terms of being named as the new Circuit Court Judge in Pierce County. Elizabeth is more than qualified, and we welcome her in her soon-to-be new capacity. I told her that we would show her the new handshake once she was formally sworn in as part of our very unique group. She will be sworn in, as I understand, or be officially named to that office on Sunday, the 17th. Only the state makes employees start at the beginning of a pay period, and so her start date is tied to a pay period. And then she will be mentoring around the district. Now, what you may not know is Pierce County is not in the same district as St. Croix, although its county seat is the closest of any county seat to Hudson. But they are in District 7, which geographically goes from Pierce all the way down to the Illinois border and the Iowa border. So it spans the entire Mississippi River Valley and is at least a very geographically stretched district. Because of Ms. Roll's ties to St. Croix, we were persuasive in talking to their district court administrator, their chief judge, who I know very well, Bob Vandehey, in Grant County, about having Elizabeth mentor here in St. Croix. So she'll be mentoring in St. Croix, I believe, 2 days next week. She hopefully will have her robe by then, and will be joining Judges Waterman and I and Judge Black and Nordstrand on the bench in that new capacity as judge. So welcome, Ms. Roll. We will likewise sorely miss you here in St. Croix. You have done yeoman service in everything that you're engaged and involved with, first as an assistant district attorney and most recently as an assistant corporation counsel. And your counsel, your presence, your intellect will be missed, but well used in Pierce County. So anything you'd like to say, Liz?
I don't think so. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing everyone next week in a different capacity.
Thank you. Carl Anderson also, I think everyone knows, was sworn in as St. Croix County District Attorney on the 5th of January. I was hopeful he would likewise join us, but again, I have every reason to know that when one takes over that responsibility, there's a lot that has to be done in those first couple of weeks administratively and otherwise. So hopefully Carl can join us either yet today or at some future meeting for his formal introduction as our new district attorney. Also, just by way of announcement, Susan Caparelli, I believe all of you know, has left her position at Restorative Services in River Falls and is now the CJCC coordinator in Polk County. So we congratulate Susan on that new position in Polk. And I know she and Mike O'Keefe have been in many conversations about that new role that she's taking on. She's been replaced by Bridget Warren, who I thought might be joining us today, but was at a meeting yesterday, and so we welcome Ms. Warren's advisory status with the group. So those are in essence my public comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to make public comment? Hearing none, we'll move into the business items, CJCC and Treatment Alternative Diversion Financial Review. Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Judge. First, the 2020 CJCC budget. We came in under budget. There were some things I didn't have to purchase throughout the year. As far as the TAD grant, we had some excess funds due to some COVID issues during the year. Some of the staff couldn't attend out-of-state training, conferences, things like that. So we made a request for a modification to use some of those funds to purchase some other products. Maybe I'll let Kim Kitzberger talk about one of them that you just purchased for treatment court.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Actually, we made a couple of purchases at the end of the year for treatment court. Some smaller purchases, including some Hazelton materials that we share with our participants. So big books, recovery, meditation books, those type of materials that we pass out to each of the participants. Our bigger purchase for the end of the year was actually to equip every treatment court team member with an iPad. The way that we currently share data is email transmission, paper. We're printing paper records every week. So one of the things that we've been able to do is purchase the iPads and work with the IT department to set up a Teams page for our team where we can start placing all of our data and reduce some of the paper sharing and make the data more accessible, especially for those working out in the field. Instead of having to call me to find an address or a phone number, they'll be able to just pull out their iPad, access that client's record, and do what they need to do without having to wait for the chain of command. So we just got that technology in. I'm just learning the new IT features so that our team can be much more efficient in the way that we share our data and have much more accessibility to that data while working out in the field.
Thanks, Kim. Also, the 2021 TAD budget is going to include a civilian worker at the Day Report Center. We have the contract signed with Justice Point. I think they interviewed on Tuesday for that position. We should be getting notified, hopefully by tomorrow, of the candidate. And then there's a little bit of a background check that has to be done by the sheriff's office, and we should be able to start that person very soon.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. O'Keefe about our finances? Thank you. Item 2, again, I was going to formally introduce Carl Anderson, and again, hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do that. I will indicate that the courts did meet with DA Anderson, I believe before Christmas, and had an excellent discussion about our intersection, so to speak, in terms of justice partners with the public defenders and other defense attorneys, and we certainly welcome his leadership. Also, I don't think I'm violating HIPAA, but I think most of you know Mike Niskas required some surgery shortly before his official retirement. The biggest question is, where would he have it done? Minnesota, Wisconsin, or based on his new home down in North Carolina. As I understand, they finally got insurance worked out. He had the surgery shortly before Christmas, and the sheriff shared with me this morning that Mike is doing well, was eating pudding, and is on the road to recovery. So we all wish Mike well in his recovery, but I thought, again, everyone would certainly want to know how he's doing. Item 3, Kate Avalos serves as our vice chair. It is a 2-year term, and technically her term has expired as vice chair. And so I would certainly entertain at this time any nominations for that position. I know Mike reached out to Ms. Avalos, and she would be willing to take that on again if elected, and she's now joined us visually by Zoom. So are there nominations for vice chair of the CJCC?
I will nominate Kate Avalos.
Thank you. The sheriff has nominated Kate Avalos.
Second.
Thank you. Second? Any other nominations? Nominations for vice chair, going twice, going 3 times. This time the court will close, or the court chair will close nominations and direct that a unanimous ballot be cast for Ms. Avalos as vice chair. And welcome back, Kate, in that responsibility. And again, we welcome again your input as well as your expertise as a private member of the bar to the body in general, but also to the executive committee. Treatment and alternatives grant update. Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I said before, we have a civilian worker starting at the Day Report Center. I'm hoping within 30 days, maybe probably 2 weeks, I hope. But that person is going to be a triage person to help take UAs for our diversion program and to take UAs for our treatment program. That's one thing that's kind of fallen down a bit since COVID came into effect. But I think one thing we need to look at is more of the 2022 to 2027 grant cycle. That'll be a competitive grant cycle coming up. And I know you talked about at the executive committee possibly, assigning that out to maybe a smaller work group to talk about some innovative ideas to apply for that grant cycle. I think there's going to be a lot of competition. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe 65 counties applied. Usually TAD sends out a thing asking who's interested, and I'm assuming they'll do that fairly soon and get an idea, how the money's going to be split. Just as a reminder, we receive about $146,000 in TAD grant dollars. That doesn't include our 25% match, which is covered by staff salaries. So the whole grant is $195,000, I think is what it comes out to be. We could ask for more. That's kind of a gamble, but you better have proof that what you're doing is actually we're making some progress using the funds that we've used in the last 5 years. So I think your idea of having a smaller work group kind of look at some ideas is probably a good one at this point.
Thank you. As Mike said, first, I think there's some relative assurance that the legislature will continue to fund TAD grants. I think they've recognized their value in terms of outcomes for those primarily in the criminal justice system. But as Mike also said, that it will be a highly competitive process. I can't remember, I think right now there may be 50 counties?
About 50.
About 50 out of the 72 counties who are receiving TAD funds, and I would be surprised if not all 72 counties have submitted a grant application for this new cycle. The last biennium, the legislature did put additional money into TAD. There's certainly no indication as to what their intentions are this year. Continue to fund, increase, decrease, but hopefully they will not cut that funding, and hopefully they see the value and increase it. As I said, I think at the November meeting, given the highly competitive nature, I think arguably we have to be creative. We have to think out of the box in terms of what hopefully will catch the eye of those who are evaluating the applications for funding. And I think it makes perfect sense that we form a work group. Certainly those areas of the system that are impacted, district attorney's office, the courts, and the sheriff's department are certainly logical choices, but before the end of the month, I'll identify individuals who I would like at least to start looking at that particular process and hopefully coming up with a application that, as I said, catches the eye and hopefully receives funding. So if anyone certainly is interested in serving on that work group, let me know, let Mike O'Keefe know. I want to keep it manageable, but also, as I said, get that started sooner than later so we're ahead of the curve. Any questions about the new grant cycle or my thoughts of forming a work group? Hearing none. I'll segue then into the circuit court updates. I shared with Mark Schwartz, one of our supervisors in building services this morning. He asked how I was doing, and I said, well, you know, generally I'm doing well, but as we all know, the situation changes day to day and some situations hour by hour. Given the spike after the Thanksgiving holiday and COVID, the courts did modify their operational plan to, again, go primarily to Zoom appearances where they are either sanctioned by the statutes or by the Supreme Court, and to suspend, again, all jury trials except those where there's a constitutional or statutorily mandated timeline, so speedy trials, termination of parental rights, mental commitments, guardianships, where if we don't have a jury trial, we lose jurisdiction or there are other outcomes. So those are still on the books. But the modification, again, in our operational plan has, in essence, resulted in a dip, which I don't think would come as a surprise in terms of case processing and moving cases through. We get a lot more done when people are here in the building. The best conversations between attorneys occur out in the hallway before the attorneys come into the courtroom. And not that they don't have the ability to get on the phone or email or whatever the other forms of communication might be viable, but that's where a lot of the work gets done. So we've had, again, a drop-off in our case processing, but that is complemented by the significant uptick in case processing that we were able to accomplish pretty much from mid-August through Thanksgiving, where our numbers spiked in terms of resolving cases and moving cases through. Because of the suspension and jury trials, I can also tell you that starting at least in March, which is again when we're looking again to maybe resume additional jury trials, our calendars are stacked. It's the proverbial kicking the can down the road, and at some point we got to pick the can up and deal with it. So it will have an impact. We are still restricted to one courtroom for doing jury trials, and so every month I put together a priority list of what case is number one, case number two. We require of attorneys that they notify us at least 2 weeks in advance of their scheduled date, whether the case is settled or whether it's going to trial, and that then permits those further down the list to know they're now number one or their case is going to be pushed out. So I'll continue to do that at least for the foreseeable future. And as I said, the operational plan does not have an end date at this point. And we met last week, I believe, to talk about extending the suspension, and we concluded we would do that at least through February and then review it again. Technology-wise, as you know, we, with the support of the county administrator and county board, did implement significant technology changes in all of the courtrooms. The infrastructure, meaning all of the equipment, is there, and this week, people from Tierney, who are the company doing that work, as well as CCAP, which is the court's computer IT department, have been in Judge Nordstrand's courtroom for 2 days. They're in my courtroom now for 2 days, now making all of that equipment operational. So hopefully by next week we'll have 2 courts up and running in terms of all the technology as well as CCAP. The reason the court IT department is here is that we're implementing and putting in every courtroom DAR, which is digital audio recording systems. Again, it will not replace our stenographers, but will serve as a backup if needed, and we have a qualified DAR operator, but I think, as I've shared before, the stenography industry is one that is not growing. It is a profession, unfortunately, that's not attracting anywhere near the numbers to meet the demand. Just anecdotally, we should be hiring about 30 court reporters in Wisconsin every year to deal with attrition as well as retirements. And in the 3 programs Wisconsin and Minnesota has, they graduated 6 students last year. So you can really do your own math about supply meeting demand. And so the Director of State Courts is committed to making sure we can make the record, and so DAR is being installed in every courtroom in every county of Wisconsin as that pretty much backup if needed. As I said, we met with Carl Anderson, our new district attorney, before Christmas, and I think Carl has now joined us, or at least Mike gave me a little cheat sheet here that said Carl is now on. And it was a great meeting, a good first step, and again, in our relationship. As I shared with him, our plan is to meet with his office and the public defender, supervisor, managing person quarterly. We do that with the sheriff. We do it with the Department of Human Services and other partners, and so we look forward to that engagement with Carl as the new DA. We met also with Bob Rarrett, and that was an excellent meeting in terms of his background and passions and how they really complement some of the areas that the courts are interested in and continue to want to work with him and the department to improve the delivery of services on so many areas that both of us touch as organizations. By way of announcement, the St. Croix Bar Association has been wonderful in promoting a free legal clinic, and I think they offer it one time a month. It has always been here at the Government Center where people can come and speak to an attorney and at least get some ideas, some thoughts about how their particular situation could be handled. With COVID, as you might expect, that had to be suspended, and I believe the clinic has not technically been operating for a couple of months, but starting now in January, they're going to be offering the free legal clinic by Zoom. So a flyer is posted throughout the building. I think it's posted on the website that if people need those services and at least the opportunity to talk to an attorney, the Bar Association is now going to be doing it remotely. And so I compliment them for, again, offering that service and being able to provide that assistance to those who just need some help, need some direction. The last thing that I would like to cover is I think we have an opportunity to look at a number of what I will call justice system services. And what comes to mind for all the judges, and this isn't my idea, this is something that the judges have been talking about for about a year, would be our treatment courts, the day report center, diversion program, as well as other justice system programs and services that we offer. Right now, many of those things are siloed. Treatment courts are operated and managed by the courts, which we do not believe is probably the best home for treatment courts. DRC is housed with the Sheriff's Department. Diversion is housed in the District Attorney's Office, and I can kind of go down the list. And so what we are proposing, and in all likelihood what you're going to hear at least by March, is the formation again of a task force to look at all of our justice system services, their coordination, their programming, and figure out how can we collectively kind of tear down the silos and look at this as an organizational effort. And so I talked to Mr. Anderson, or we talked to Mr. Anderson briefly about it. I've talked to the sheriff briefly about it. And so that is something, again, that the judges are very interested in, at least looking at. Mike O'Keefe would be a key member of that task force as well, to look at what we're doing and can we do it more efficiently? Can we do it in a manner, again, where it's not in a silo, but rather part of a overall organizational effort. So that is something, again, that I plan to propose formally in March, but I wanted to give everyone at least a heads up that that is something the courts, the judges are very interested in looking at organizationally. So that kind of covers where I'm at. Judge Waterman.
I just have one thing to add, and I'll try to keep this brief. You may have heard about the crisis in the public defender system statewide. We've heard anecdotes about cases, especially up north in some of the more rural counties, where the public defender has been unable to appoint counsel, unable to find attorneys willing to take cases. And in the end, individuals and the system suffer. People sit in jail when they shouldn't be. They're not getting hearings when they should be. Cases aren't being processed. And when I joined the bench about 5 or 6 years ago, we found ourselves, or I found myself, in a very fortunate situation that this local public defender office had 4 dedicated career attorneys working those files. And the system worked. We felt pretty well insulated from the statewide problem. Well, unfortunately, all 4 of them have departed through either retirement or other careers. We've been fortunate to find some very talented and dedicated young attorneys, but we have also learned too that attraction of talent is difficult, not just in our county, but statewide. It's finally hitting us here in St. Croix County. So I just wanted to publicly state that it is something that all 4 judges are concerned about because it interferes with the delivery of legal services. It affects individuals' rights, and the system, frankly, cannot run without a fully staffed public defender office. Now, that's not to say that the attorneys that are currently working and their supervisors are not doing their jobs. In fact, they're probably doing the jobs of themselves and a couple of others. Lori Osberg has been filling in as the office manager. She has her own full-time job in Eau Claire, and she's been filling in another full-time job here in St. Croix County. I don't know what we would do if she didn't step up and do that. Our allotment of public defenders in St. Croix County has been short for at least the past year. We've been down to as few as 2 attorneys in a county that normally has 4. We've been generally staffed at about 3 for the past year. And those attorneys are doing their best. They're working hard. They're scrambling between courtrooms. And if you would see them at the end of the day, you would never know it because they don't complain, they don't gripe. But every once in a while, you get a glimmer into what they're feeling, and you see the frustration that they have, that there's going to come a point where even their dedication will break. So I just say that because I think everybody should be aware of this issue. It is a problem for all of us within the system at some point. If indigent defendants are not getting quality legal services. I checked my statistics this morning on my judicial dashboard, and in the past 12 months, I had 733 new criminal files in the past 12 months. And I would imagine that my fellow judges have had similar numbers. The backbone of that system are public defenders. Without them, the system can't work. So I just wanted to raise it today. I'm not expecting any comment or solutions, but it is something that is very serious that we're paying close attention to.
And I certainly echo Judge Waterman's sentiments. The judges did send a letter to Kelly Thompson, who is the state public defender in Madison, former Governor Thompson's daughter. And she reached out and, again, indicated the efforts they're making to try to fully staff not only the St. Croix County office, but I certainly sense other offices throughout the state. And so I know it's not through a lack of effort, but it is, again, in our opinion, reaching crisis dimensions when we have people sitting in jail who don't have an attorney. We can't find an attorney to get appointed for them. And so it's something that, again, we should all be mindful of. And if you have any connections with legislators or others who might assist in the funding of that agency and helping them attract qualified attorneys, I would encourage you to do so. Ms. Osberg, did you want to chime in or add? I think she's left us, in fact. So that's kind of the circuit court report. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing or what's happening? Thank you. We're going to circle back. Carl Anderson is now at least, I think, on Zoom, although his microphone is muted. So, Mr. Anderson, again, if you can hear me, welcome to the CJCC as a formal voting member of this body. Anything you'd like to say about yourself, Carl, or otherwise introduce?
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be a part of the group. I don't have anything for this morning specifically, but I look forward to working with everyone on here, and yeah.
Thank you. Also in that area of introductions, we certainly congratulate Ken Witt on his formal appointment as county administrator. I think, as most of you know, he's been acting since Pat Thompson decided to go south to Illinois, and Ken brings with him, again, a multitude of talent and abilities, and so we compliment the county board on their processes of quickly getting that office filled, and I look forward to working with Ken in that capacity as presiding and his capacity as county administrator. Health and Human Services updates. We have again Bob Rarrett with us. Mr. Rarrett, what can you share about what's happening with Health and Human Services?
Thank you, Judge, and good morning, everyone. I was going to give an update this morning, Judge, on COVID-19 briefly and our efforts to vaccinate, and then a few updates on some of the critical safety net concerns that we have and that we're addressing, partially through the Mental Health Subcommittee of the CJCC, but just as a department and as a whole. Just quickly on COVID-19, Public Health operated a vaccination clinic here at the Services Center yesterday from 3:30 to 7:30. That was a part of vaccinating folks in the 1A phase of the vaccination process, and we had 150 doses of, I believe, the Pfizer vaccine that were administered to EMS workers who weren't affiliated with a healthcare provider. The vaccine, as it becomes available, we will move through all of those that are eligible for phase 1 of the vaccination, and then we'll move into phase 1B, which includes essential workers. Our efforts, our public health efforts, are to coordinate this vaccine rollout with our area hospitals. I know Allison Page is on the meeting this morning, and she has been a part of weekly calls, certainly very valuable input on how to, as a system in the Western region, how we should coordinate and be consistent with the way that we roll out vaccine. The process is a little messy right now, just given some of the definitions that have to be solidified around who qualifies for essential workers, et cetera. But if the best way, I think, to get updates on where things stand with vaccinations is to go to the St. Croix County website and click on the COVID-19 information button at the top. We have a vaccine page on that website that we try to keep very current, so the most recent and best information is available to everyone. And we're not then giving different information to people. We can go by what's on that website as the most current and best information. We'll continue to do clinics out of the Services Center and possibly in other locations as plans develop. But for now, that's where things stand, unless there are questions around that piece. One last component of that is the pandemic hasn't gone away, obviously. So we're still doing contact tracing. We're still responding to positive cases as they come to us. The good news is that hospitalizations appear to be down, and the cases haven't, the number of cases per day haven't spiked dramatically since Christmas. There's always a question about where that's going to go, especially with new variants being discovered and potentially being more contagious. We'll just have to keep an eye on that. But again, on the county website, there's a COVID-19 information page, or page with a new dashboard that provides additional data and information about where things stand currently with COVID-19 cases in the county and hospitalizations and deaths and that sort of information. Just moving on here to another topic that's gaining a lot of interest right now around emergency beds or the lack thereof in the western region of Wisconsin. This has been also a focus of the Mental Health Subcommittee, but the challenge here is that there aren't enough beds to meet the need right now, and an effort last year through a Senate bill died in session that would have expanded beds in the Eau Claire region, which would have assisted some of that need or reduced some of that need. That's being looked at again as a possibility going into the next session. Something we would certainly support, and the Wisconsin County Association would support. I have a meeting tomorrow with Western Region HHS directors to talk specifically about this topic, to gather data, current data on bed utilization and bed availability. This is all impacted, of course, by COVID-19 and the fact that that sometimes reduces our options in terms of where we can send people who are in need of an emergency mental health or addiction crisis, in need of services for those kinds of issues. So, we're battling the pandemic's effect on availability of placements, and we're battling the lack of available resources in this region. But those are things that we're actively engaged in and trying to develop solutions for. I do want to make just a caveat to that. I know we have an immediate need for this kind of bed expansion in this region, but I do want to let you know that we're keeping our eye longer term on systems changes that would, in my mind, move in the right direction to get upstream a little bit of these crisis services and stop getting in the endless circle of increasing beds in response to crisis. What I'm trying to say is that our healthcare system has, for a long time now, waited until people got sick or got into crisis before we respond to them. And the effort at our end is going to be to move upstream on that to help keep people well, or well enough that they don't need crisis services to begin with. Some of those systems changes I alluded to would do that. I've seen them be successful in Minnesota. They involve things like care coordination, case management, and peer recovery support, which to me are the key to differently engaging people who are in need of mental health and addiction help. The other topic I was going to mention was homelessness and efforts around addressing, again, the immediate needs of those who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. The eviction moratorium ends at the end of this month, which could mean a big influx of folks who are no longer housed. Now there's a chance that will be extended. I hope it is. And there's also additional funding that might be available to assist with things like vouchers and finding short-term and long-term housing options. But it's a big problem, and I know we're in the middle of winter, and there are people with these needs right now. There is a group that formed recently. In fact, this week we met to talk about the issue of motel vouchers, some of the challenges with that, and some of the opportunities around that, to at least increase capacity for those people in immediate need of housing. The longer term solutions are always what we want to get to, and I have had discussions with West Cap, Robin Thibodeau, about their efforts and how we can partner with them differently as well to strengthen the housing options that people have, or increasing their ability to get into those housing options. It's a big topic, both of these are, but I just wanted to bring them up today to let you know that we are addressing them, and of course they affect law enforcement as well. All of these issues do. Substance use remains a major concern. It sort of transcends all areas of our department. It transcends all areas of the county and healthcare, really. We want to get to a place with substance use disorders and mental health conditions where we're treating the whole person, and not getting in the rut of sending people to specialty clinics for time-limited services. We want to get to a consistent way of addressing addiction and mental health, again, upstream and in a comprehensive way, rather than piecemeal or based on insurance coverage or based on eligibility for some other reason like residency. These are big problems, but I think we've got some traction going at the state to look at these issues. We're supporting systems change initiatives that the state is finally getting around to looking at, and I intend to be a thorn in their side to get some of these things moving forward. I didn't want to take up too much time this morning. Was there a question?
No, I just wanted to chime in if I can. This is Allison.
Yeah, sorry, Allison.
Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
Chime in on a couple things here. I'll get to substance use disorder, but just first on the pandemic. The pandemic, we're focusing right now on vaccination, of course. It's right at the front of everyone's mind is vaccination. I think Wisconsin has been allocated over 600,000 doses from the federal government. And we've administered over 300,000 of those doses so far. So things are happening. It's been a little confusion with that first wave of distribution, but the second wave we're sure will go much smoother. I can't say enough good things about St. Croix, Polk, and Pierce County collaborating with all the hospitals in the region. We've got very good collaboration. So vaccination distribution is huge, but our bigger problem that's just lurking in the shadows back there is going to be vaccine hesitation. It is a pandemic of its own in rural areas, and it's worse in rural areas and then in the cities. And we're going to have a big problem with this pandemic if just a little over 50% of the people choose to be vaccinated. And right now, as you're hearing on the news, a lot of people are just saying, nope, not for me, I'm not getting vaccinated. It has now become a political issue, which is just, frankly, absolutely bizarre. So we're going to have to deal with that. And part and parcel to that then is what levers do we have? And there's a couple of issues with some of the levers that we have of, can a business make it mandatory? The answer we're hearing, the final answer is yes, businesses can make it mandatory. We intend at Western Wisconsin Health to make it a condition of employment or mandatory. But there are efforts in Madison right now, if you're paying attention to the legislation that's going on down there or not going on down there, efforts afoot to absolve businesses from ending any accountability related to the pandemic. Or not hold them accountable. We have, and I'm sure you guys do because we're sending them to you, we have people call our healthcare organization every day saying, I'm so worried. My husband works at XYZ and they're doing nothing to protect their employees. So what do we do with that? And how do county health officers or counties have jurisdiction to do something about that? So those are problems that are going to be around for a while, and this pandemic's going nowhere until we get really, really solid participation in the vaccination process and the vaccines continue to work. And we don't know that they will for sure. But anyway, that's one thing. And then on substance use disorder, just FYI, I know Health Partners has done a great job in the region working on substance use disorder. We don't have it up and running yet because of the pandemic, but we are going to be operating an intensive outpatient therapy for substance use disorder that will be able to serve Medicaid and Medicare patients at Western Wisconsin Health. So that should be a really good add to the region for services for people needing assistance with that. And then we do have a full-time psychiatrist joining us next summer, which will be helpful to the area. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, Bob. And we're also, again, in case you guys aren't totally recognizing it, we're very lucky to have Bob. Nice.
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate your input and all of the efforts, all of your contributions to those weekly meetings, I think are valuable. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I'll move on here to Children's Services. I've asked Julie Krings to join us to talk a little more specifically about children's services and in particular foster care and out-of-home placements, kind of where things stand and what we're doing in response to the need. Julie is the Children's Services Administrator and Operations Manager here at HHS, and I wanted her to talk to this topic in a little more depth in case you had questions specific to her. So Julie, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our child welfare crisis. I think all the attention is going on the COVID pandemic, but at the same time, we're continuing to be in a child welfare crisis, primarily due to alcohol and methamphetamine use of caregivers. We really started this crisis in 2016 and we spiked in 2017 and have continued at those same high levels since then of kids in out-of-home care. Prior to our crisis, we would only have approximately 20 kids in out-of-home care for the entire year. And right now today, we have 82 kids in out-of-home care. So just a significant amount of increase in need for that. And not only does this have an impact on children's services or health and human services, but also on our court system, law enforcement, and you name it, because these families are in front of the courts, just to make people aware that this impacts a lot of people. The one good thing, and I've continued to say this all along, is that the majority of the kids that we do have in out-of-home placement are with relatives or very close family members. And this is very unique to St. Croix County. If you look at other counties, they do not have this. So we should be proud that our community is stepping forward to help care for their family members. And then if we were to take a look at other kids in out-of-home care, the next highest level is our foster care system. Prior to the pandemic, we really increased our efforts on foster care recruitment. We formed a foster care retention and recruitment team. Not only do we want to find new foster parents, but we want to keep the ones that we have. Because oftentimes foster care is a very thankless and extremely stressful job, if you will, to provide care for a child. So we want to retain the ones that we have and then also look for additional foster homes. We had great success in recruiting foster homes, especially in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And of course, people aren't necessarily wanting to engage in new things because of the pandemic and taking a stranger into your home. So some of our recruitment has died off. And a lot of our recruitment efforts prior to COVID were in person. So we're kind of going back to the drawing board and trying to come up with some ways to do some recruitment. Obviously, the research shows that the best way to find foster parents is through our current foster homes. So really texting into our current foster family saying, hey, you got a friend, you got a neighbor that might be interested. And that is one thing that we see is sometimes people apply together to become foster parents. We just had a couple of school teachers that both were interested, and they decided to go through that application process together. Currently in St. Croix County, we have 24 licensed foster homes. We call these level 2 homes through the state. And those are people that just come off the street and say, hey, you know what, I want to be a foster parent. I want to get back to my community. And we also have 1 home pending. We also have level 1 homes. And these are families that we license that are relatives, and they become licensed so they can receive a stipend and a variety of other things. And we have 6 licensed level 1 homes, so these are family members, and we have 11 pending licenses. It does take a lot to get people licensed for foster care. There's an extensive application process. We really look at people's motivation for providing foster care. Like, why are people wanting to get into this? Are they getting into it for the right reasons? And then we complete a comprehensive home study. It's called a SAFE assessment. You have to be certified to conduct a SAFE study. I'm certified in it, and it's a pretty extensive training, and you have to continually kind of prove that you're able to do these studies, where we look at all dynamics of that foster family. We also do a very thorough evaluation of the home's physical environments. It's not unique for our foster care coordinators to have a tape measure when they're going out and doing home studies to, measure square footage of rooms and all that kind of stuff. We often involve our local fire department if we have any questions on fire safety. And so just really doing a very complex study of that physical environment. And then obviously the background checks, very thorough background checks, and then references. Again, COVID has certainly had an impact on our foster care system, not only trying to recruit people, but also there's a lot of fear with our current foster parents, and rightfully so, about potentially taking on new children and what that could mean for their family in regards to COVID. And then not only just this particular child, but everybody that child has contact with. So such as, their family members, their mom, their dad, aunts and uncles, and, are people being safe with COVID? So there's just a lot of work that has to be done in order to do that. Obviously, our staff, we're very safe regarding family interaction. We have policies and procedures put in place. But even so, there's still fear, and we are very grateful for the foster parents that we have. They are the backbone of our Children's Services Department because they are the ones providing care for children, so they can remain in their communities and their same school district. That's the other thing, is when we place kids in out-of-home care, we try to keep them within their school of origin. And kudos to several of our school districts partnering with us on assisting with transportation. If a foster parent happens to be outside of that school district, we have a lot of school districts partnering with us to help provide transportation so that kid can stay in their home school. The state has given foster parents a couple of extra stipends this past year just to help with COVID, just all the extra cleaning and all that kind of stuff that they need to do for their home. So the state has given foster parents a little bit of money. It's not a significant amount, but just to cover a couple of those extra expenses, especially with schools, a lot of the schools being online. So just with meal costs and all that kind of stuff. Just the other kind of bigger thing that's going on in Children's Services in regard to placement is we also have several youth with extremely complex mental health and behavioral issues, and they are really requiring a very high level of care. And that gets to be difficult with COVID. Because a lot of places have a very rigid screening and they have to meet certain criteria now because of COVID that they didn't have to before. And then also, just as Bob was talking about, is bed availability. Because of the crisis in Wisconsin, with counties having so many kids in out-of-home care, it's that whole supply and demand. And then also a lot of facilities don't have the capacity to meet our children's needs. And in fact, we've had a couple of different circumstances where we could not find any facility in the state of Wisconsin to accept our youth. Now that is really significant. And as a result, we've had to place children in other states. And of course, we're working closely with our courts on this as well. So that is kind of Children's Services in a nutshell. We are doing a variety of proactive measures to try to address the crisis, but that's a whole nother presentation for you. But I just wanted to provide you with where we're at currently in Children's Services. Anybody have any questions?
And again, if there's anything in particular that, and thank you, Julie, that was really well done. If you have any questions, if there's any desire to know more about a particular area of our work or something specifically that we're doing, I know that Julie and I are both always open to talking more about that at a different time. Most of our services right now are still done remotely, and that'll probably continue for the next few months at least, given what Allison mentioned, that vaccine acceptance is relatively low and not where it needs to be. This pandemic will drag on longer, the longer people postpone getting a vaccine. But for the meantime, we're walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're learning how to adapt to this new environment. And I think the staff here are doing a very nice job of evolving with the times here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Judge, I look forward to any future meetings we could have just to exchange ideas and continue moving forward in a progressive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Bob or Julie?
Judge, this is Bob Fadler. I do have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bob, I think Allison mentioned that we had a growing problem, particularly with those who will not accept the vaccine. Are we going to engage in an extensive education program or continue any extensive programs we now have underway to try to persuade those people and make it a common knowledge what the benefits are?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Adam Kostanek and Kelly Engen are very concerned about this topic and are working on a public health campaign to encourage vaccinations. In fact, on the website, there's a good deal of information about myths related to vaccines and other kinds of tips on why vaccines are valuable, et cetera. Now, I understand a lot of people aren't going to go to the website, but we're looking at other methods of getting the word out there, changing perception, if we can, around vaccines. And as Allison said, trying to move this away from a political topic to one of healthcare. We'll be working on that and developing those kinds of campaigns going forward. I know, like I said, currently Adam and Kelly are engaged in those discussions, and I'm usually a part of them, but it's a difficult topic and it requires some thought as to how to go about changing perception without making things worse. And I can only say at this point that we are focused on that, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of bending people's minds, and I mean, we're all aware of what's going on politically in the country, but bending people's minds and helping them understand the collective good. And that's why I get concerned about things like, well, businesses aren't going to be on the hook for anything related to COVID-19. Well, if I'm, from the beginning at our medical center, our motto was, you're not going to get exposed to this here. You need to take care of yourself out there in the public, but this building is super safe. And having that collective understanding and keeping it safe and allowing people to require the vaccine and really getting those numbers up, that's what's going to get rid of this. I was startled to just doing research around pandemics in general and, spread of disease. And we're all learning a lot, right? Besides our civics lessons, we're learning a lot about the spread of disease this year. But I had not realized that the polio went on for 50 years. 50 years of people living in fear of their children getting polio before Salk came up with the vaccine. And then that poof, solved it. But we've lost that societal understanding and wrapping our heads around the collective good. So the answer to your question is yes. I mean, we're all working on how can we do this. The CDC is working on it. The federal government's working on it. The state's working on it. The counties are working on it. And we need to really push the message out there.
Thank you. Any other questions of Bob or Julie? It's a good segue then to the next topic, which is court-appointed special advocate project update. As Ms. Kring said, we have 82 kids in out-of-home placement, kids with very complex backgrounds as well as issues and trauma. And Judge Waterman's going to give us the latest information or lack of information on CASA. Judge Waterman.
I wish I had good news to report, but I have a lot of the same news. For those of you who missed the last meeting in November, we gave an update about the regional model for CASA. The idea was that CASA of Western Wisconsin would serve as a regional hub, and localities like St. Croix County would be a spoke delivering services locally. This is a model that the National CASA organization had insisted on, and you can't be a CASA program without having the blessing of the National CASA. So while the concept seemed simple enough, once we started to get into the details, we found that there really weren't any details. Although the National CASA is insisting on this regional model, there isn't a template or a model for us to follow. So for the past couple of months, I think the judges have met at least 3 or 4 times. We've involved Sue Schwartz, who is the state representative for CASA, trying to find ways to either develop a model or adopt somebody else's model. And so far, none have come to fruition. The judges also have expressed some concern, too, about the compatibility of having a county like St. Croix paired up with other counties in the region. And the reason for that is that St. Croix is unique. We have a limited amount of government funding. After that, we are going to be expected to privately raise funds to support the program. Whereas in Barron County, it's really the opposite, where they have what appears to be a steady stream of county funds for that program. We also have concerns, too, about the ability of a regional organization based out of Barron to fundraise our local foundations. And frankly, a lot of that's based on relationships and contacts. And that's probably something that we would best do on our own. So we are looking at the possibility of going on our own, setting up our own CASA program for St. Croix County. We have a meeting scheduled, I believe, for next week with the National CASA representatives to present our case, and we'll keep you updated on what the outcome is.
Any questions of Judge Waterman about CASA? Thank you. CJCC Subcommittee reports and reviews, criminal justice. I know Judge Norstrand has had a calendar this morning, so Mr. O'Keefe, can you fill in?
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll just give you, we continue to work with the Criminal Justice Subcommittee on issues really related to the Day Report Center and how to help those folks make that operation a little more sustainable in the future. So that's really what we continue to work with. The other thing is, I think for the domestic violence, Judge Black's not here. He's the chair. Could I call on Tim Heckman, Your Honor?
Sure.
Mr. Heckman, are you there, please? Just to give a quick update.
I am, Mike. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you sweat there for a second, but yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'll be brief here. Subcommittee is working on basically a working document that would provide access or knowledge of resources in the county. So whatever role you're in a domestic violence situation, be it perpetrator, be it survivor, be it victim, whatever, kids, we're trying to put some information together which would be a neutral stance, and then everybody would depart to their respective corners and do their job. So we're working in conjunction with Turning Point, in conjunction with the local bar association, and we're hoping to have that finalized by our next subcommittee meeting in February. And again, it's basically to address the role of domestic violence that kind of flows underneath perhaps the criminal justice system that I see in family court, that I see in civil court, that we deal with in domestics and harassment and stalking and those types of situations. So it's kind of a bipartisan effort, so to speak, which is well needed these days, but we're having some fruitful conversations, and we hope to have that finalized by our next meeting. So, Mike, back to you.
Thank you. Tim, it looks like you're in witness protection.
This is my side job. I'm mixing late at night, Judge, so I had to put the records down for a second to participate here.
All right. And just a modest comment on that subgroup. Law enforcement has been absolutely phenomenal in working with, coming up with these domestic violence assessments and training agencies. I think Chief Richard can probably supplement, but I know the County Sheriff's Department has been trained, North Hudson has been, Hudson and Richmond, and so this is a rollout really that's pretty incredible in terms of people understanding the nature of domestic violence, what the right questions are, and at least assisting in that effort. So any questions of Tim or domestic violence subcommittee? Mr. Raritt, I'm not sure if you have more to add under the mental health and substance abuse other than what you provided, but is there anything else that the committees are doing?
Judge, I think I covered the topics pretty well. I think the one thing I would add just quickly is that that last line under on the substance abuse committee around it's in one of those around Medicaid expansion. When I talked about systems change, that was one of the components of systems change was expanding Medicaid coverage for this population and for the mental health system. The reason being that they're currently funded in such a way that they're capitated and time limited, and we want to move to a system whereby people can get assistance like they would with any other healthcare concern through behavioral health homes and community comprehensive community. I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, another another Medicaid-based system that would treat the whole person. Again, Wisconsin is looking at that, and we're supporting those efforts.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Raritt and the mental health or substance abuse subcommittees?
Your Honor.
Yes.
If I may quickly, in regards to the substance use subcommittee, I just wanted a quick update that the local healthcare centers have picked up our research survey for our prevention and intervention efforts. We have a meeting later this month, but hoping to get that survey into the hands of the local healthcare facilities for more data collection.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else? Next topic is the public safety assessment PSA implementation and potential action. Mr. O'Keefe.
What's that?
Thank you, Your Honor. I attended a webinar from the, let me see, it's the Advancing Policy and Research, APPR. I think somebody's not muted here. Tim? Thank you, Tim. So I attended the webinar, and it looks like there's some technical assistance. I'll take my thing off. There's some technical assistance monies available coming up, and there's a cutoff date of February 24th. And I think there's an interest in this county in implementing the public safety assessment. Right now, we use a county pretrial risk assessment, but that requires us to meet with the defendants prior to seeing the intake judge, and probably even prior to seeing a public defender and asking them about their residence and their employment. And I know that's not what we want to do. We'd rather they meet with their public defender and use the process that way. But the public safety assessment, you can use all static information. You can run a criminal history, and whatever you need, you can really get it from that. So that would be what we would want to do. I just want to make sure that there's interest in this and moving forward. Because, you know, there's going to be probably some requests for funding down the road if we do implement this, because right now I'm doing it basically half-time, and I can't see me doing this full-time, to be quite honest with you. But and I'm glad Lori came back on. There you are. Because Eau Claire has rolled out the public safety assessment, is what she told me, and they did a soft rollout maybe a few weeks ago. I'm just wondering how that's going for you, Lori?
Thank you. Yes, we are doing the PSA now. The process is our pretrial services coordinator will do the assessments on a certain category of persons who are not on probation holds or aren't otherwise in the system in other ways, because this is really for pretrial services. We get a document that tells us at what level of service pretrial services they may need. Some people may just need to be on text notification given a number of their risk factors. Some people may be referred to our CTC, which does testing similar to the DRC. And so the first category of people that might just need a phone call will be identified, as will those who are in the higher risk levels. It's not a cash bail, yes or no tool. It's there to facilitate making sure people show up for court and don't get into any additional trouble. It's been moving relatively smoothly. We've been getting our documents prior to our court intake, which for us is at 11 a.m. The judges, for the most part, have been looking at those as informative documents. And part of the reason for it is under EBDM, you don't want to be mixing generally low-risk people with a higher risk population. So kind of parsing out those level 1 and level 2 people from having to start to come, for example, to the DRC or RCTC program would kind of keep them from perhaps coming into contact with persons that might have a higher risk and might have worse ideas. So that's how it's been going. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks now, and I know that Chippewa County has a similar program that they are using as well.
Thank you, Lori. Judge, I would make a recommendation that we send this to the Criminal Justice Subcommittee that's going to meet on February the 2nd. And that would give us time, if this is something the county would like to pursue, I think that would give us time to take a look at it and for me to get in the application for that technical assistance grant. It didn't look too comprehensive to do that.
Thank you. First, are there questions of Mike or Ms. Osberg about, as Mike said, right now, he's doing compass assessments, which requires an in-person meeting with folks in custody. That impacts on the jail, it impacts on these COVID considerations, it impacts on defense counsel, and they're time-consuming, but they're useful to us when we're trying to determine bail or other conditions when someone appears in court. So I'm familiar with this particular screening tool. It was rolled out, I think, originally to 6 counties as a pilot project, Milwaukee and some others, and at least in conversations with my colleagues down there, they found it to be extremely valuable. And as Mike said, it doesn't require an in-person meeting, and again, is simply another tool. As Judge Waterman said, complicating our situation is the fact that when folks don't qualify for public defender and they're sitting in jail, they really don't have anyone to advocate for them or for us to have any objective measure as to their risk and what the conditions of their bail should be. So for that population, I think it would be useful as well. So I will refer it to the Criminal Justice Subcommittee to look at and if necessary, authorize to make the grant application if that's something that, again, merits our involvement. Other questions? Thank you. Moving on then to the Sheriff's Office update. Sheriff Knutson.
Thank you, Your Honor. One of our goals this year is getting the program coordinator within the jail back up. So we are going to be getting a civilian program coordinator. Actually, we received about 12 applications. 5 will be interviewed tomorrow, and that's led by Kathy Borgschatz. So we hope to have that in place as soon as we obviously choose one and do a full background. Obviously, they'll be working in there with the inmates and within the jail. So we've got a little work ahead of us, but we hope to get that program going. I know WITC is waiting to do some more online things. So that's really something that we need to do to get those currently incarcerated some resources in there, but also prepare them for getting back out into society. The month of December, we had 74 in jail on average. For the year 2020, we had 79.5, which is obviously down from 126, I think, last year. So, but again, COVID played a huge role in moving people around. So, April, we have our records management system. We hope we're going to go live at that time. That will definitely help us with pulling statistics and things that we surely hope will benefit law enforcement, CJCC, treatment courts, however we utilize that information. Again, right now, this is a 1998 program that we're using. We're really looking forward to this upgrade. But that goes with a lot of training as well. So, Charles Coleman, one of our investigators, has been promoted to the lieutenant position. The reason I bring that up is Jason Sikora has moved to courts. So Charles Coleman has replaced Jason on the Domestic Violence Substance Abuse Committee, and he'll be the representative for the Sheriff's Office on that committee. And since our last meeting, we created a sergeant position in the Day Report Center area, and that is Mike Kaler. And Mike is really one of the foundational, not the creator, but he put a lot into place and was instrumental in Day Report Center and the programs and the paperwork. getting our statistical summaries each month. So he has taken on that sergeant position, overseeing that and the Huber area. And then obviously added this month is our 2020 year-end review. Obviously my thanks to so many staff members that worked on it, but there's a COVID section on there that Kathy Borgschatz had begun to really historically keep track of as the year went on, because we knew we were in uncharted territory. And then, of course, all the other division leaders that added input, and we put it all together. I think it is one of our more comprehensive reports that we've given for the year-end report. So,
thank you. As the sheriff said, the entire report was part of our packet, so if anyone has any questions on the sheriff's general overview or something caught your eye in that annual report, I'm sure he would be willing to try to field any questions. Sheriff.
yeah, sorry, I had that off to my left. Day Report Center for December. Just a few things I just want to throw out there. 593 of the tests were negative, so that was 69%. There was 5 that were excused for COVID. With the missed test documentation combined to equal 679 tests, the compliance rate was 79.79. We had 63 positive drug tests, 94 missed drug tests, and 2 failed PBTs. All positive and missed tests combined to equal 159. The testing non-compliance rate was 18.68, which is our worst of the year. But it's the holidays, it's COVID, there's a number of stress factors and anxiety, and so we have obviously our work cut out for us, but as Judge Needham had mentioned, we are looking at ways to help get out of these silos and make it a more efficient working system overall for us to be included in that part. So, and I look forward to that. 2020 is going to be a year of some changes in a lot of areas, not only externally, which we see every day, but internally as well. So, and we look forward to some of those internally, not externally.
Thank you. Any questions of the sheriff? Thank you. That completes the formal agenda for the meeting. If anyone has ideas for future agenda items, again, never hesitate to let Mike or I or anyone on the executive committee know that this is something you would like us to address or explore. So again, the floor is always open for your ideas, and I especially encourage our citizen members, those technically not part of the justice system per se. If there are things that come on your radar or might be of interest to you, don't ever hesitate to let us know. Under announcements, immediately following this meeting, the Treatment Court Oversight Committee is meeting here, and I think that's going to be relatively short, but for those that are on that particular committee, we're going to immediately transition to that meeting as soon as we're done here. I don't have any other announcements. Mike doesn't. Anyone have anything else that they want to bring before the body? Seeing none, again, an extremely comprehensive meeting today. Thank you all for coming, appearing by Zoom or in person. Our next meeting will be on March 11 is somewhat of a soft date, and we'll notify everyone probably within the week whether in fact it'll be the 11th or the 18th. That's the other potential date. So we'll get that out so that you can get it on your calendars. Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.